Hey, Shalom, Lakem, Kal Yisrael. How's your peace, Israel? Welcome back to another video. And today is the Shabbat Yawam, or the Yom Shabbat. It's the day that the Father has made that we're supposed to rejoice and be glad in it. It's been a minute, I was supposed to come back with a video when it comes to the Feast of Tabernacles. We're now in the last Shabbat of the month. So it should have at least have been a week ago or 2 weeks ago, either at the beginning or the end of the Feast of Tabernacles, right? But doesn't mean that the study won't come out due to, uh, the schools coming back in order. As a teacher, one has to, uh, pay his dues. So I am typically juggling work and the work of the Father. One has to do, both. As you know, the Mashiach, he wasn't just someone that taught his people, but he was also a carpenter as well. Okay, we're typically supposed to have a job. That's why it says 6 days that thou shalt work. The seventh day you shall rest, right? So make sure that you're laboring, as it says in the scriptures, that you should work as if you're working for the Lord, right? Or Yahweh. Okay, so today is the final Shabbat, Yom Shabbat. We're going to be going into the next Hebrew biblical month, which is we're in we were in the 7th month, so we will be going into the 8th month. Okay, that's really the end of the holy days for the children of Israel. Some people obviously observe Purim and Feast of Purim, but typically the Torah is the instruction in which we should be following. So those who obviously observe outside of the Torah, things outside of the Torah, the Maccabees and things like that, that's entirely up to them. But the instruction was the Torah. Okay, so we are coming back with the Tabernacles topic, right? Feast of Tabernacles. First is the natural, second is the spiritual, right? But we're going to pick up in the book of Deuteronomy, right? Chapter 6. Yeah, I'm in a new abode. The Father has upgraded me. uh, yeah, so we're going into the book of Debarim, or Debarim, chapter 6, verses 4, right? And it reads on this wise. I'm going to read it in the Hebrew, then I'll read it in the English. It says, Shemai Yashara'al, Yahweh Eloheka, Yahweh Echad. Okay? In English, it reads, Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord alone. Okay? We're now going to go into the book of Matthew, or the book of Matthew, in the Basura, the good news, right? Chapter 6. Chapter 6. This is how the Father told us that we should pray. Okay? I'm not saying that there's no other ways of praying, but this way is the way that we ought to pray, right? I'm going to read from verse 9. It says, Therefore, you ought to pray like this: Our Father in heaven, your name be holy. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us bread sufficient for today. Forgive us our debts as we also have forgiven our debtors. And bring us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Because yours is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever and ever. Amen. Okay? Or some people say Selah. So, as we've now opened up with prayer, we've recited the Shema, right? That the Lord our God is one. Let's get into the meat of it. So we're looking at, first, is the natural, second is the spiritual, as the Feast of Tabernacles. Right? We're going to pick it up in verse. No, we're going to pick up in chapter. Book of Book of Corinthians. That's what we're going to do. First Corinthians, chapter 15. 15. Right? All right, we're going to read from verse 39. Okay? And it reads, it says, not every material body is identical. A human, right? This is First Corinthians chapter 15, verses 39. Okay? It says, not every material body is identical. A human body is one sort of thing, while an animal's body or a bird's body or a fish's body are all different. There are bodies in the heavens and bodies on the earth, though the glory of the heavenly bodies and that of the earthly bodies are different. Okay? The sun's glory and the moon's glory are different. So too is the glory of the stars, and one star may exceed the glory of another. This is the case of this is the case also with life after death. They are sown as corruptible and rise as incorruptible. They are sown as noble, they rise as glorious. They are sown as weak, they rise as powerful. They are sown as bodies with minds, they rise as bodies with spirits. You see, there are such things as bodies with minds and bodies with spirits, right? And that is why it has been written that the first man, Adam, became a living being, while the second man became a life-giving spirit. Let's just keep this in perspective, right? All, it says although actually it wasn't the one with the mind who existed first, but the one with the spirit, right? The first man was made of the earth from the ground, and the second man was the Lord made. The first man was made of the earth from the ground. The second man was the Lord from the heaven. Sorry, there was some text in the bracket which threw me off. Those who are earthly are like him who was earthly. Those who are heavenly are like him who was in the heaven. Right? So the main point here is first man was made of the earthly ground, the second man was the Lord from heaven. Right? Which in the King James Version, it would have read, because we're reading out the Peshitta, the Aramaic Peshitta, it says, but it's not the spiritual that is first, but the natural, and then the spiritual. Okay? So first is the natural, second is the spiritual. Okay? So that's what the topic is today. Today is dealing with the Feast of Tabernacles. First is the natural, second is the spiritual. We see that Adam was the first, right? It was a natural seed. And then there was someone that came after who was the spiritual. Okay? Keep that in mind as we go through the scriptures, because it's gonna parallel or make things plain about how this fits together with the Feast of Tabernacles, right? So we see that Adam was the natural, right? Let's look at the natural tabernacle, right? We're gonna go into the book of Genesis, Barashayat or Bereshit, Genesis chapter 2. Yeah, there was a part where it was talking about that the spiritual man actually came first, but let's understand that in the world, the first in this earth, the first was the natural, which was Adam, and then the second was who we're going to talk about later, right? All right, so Genesis chapter 2, and I'm going to read from verse 4. It says, when the Lord God made earth and heaven, when no shrub or field was yet on earth, no grass of the field had yet sprouted, because the Lord had not sent rain upon the earth, and there was no man to till the soil. But a flow would well up from the ground and water the whole surface of the earth. Right? Means that there was dew, as you know, in the morning. There's usually dew that there's always water, kind of, even if it doesn't rain. There's usually dew on the surface of the earth. Right? It says the Lord God formed man from the dust of the earth, and he blew into his nostrils the breath of life, and the man became a living being. We can stop there. Okay, so we see that first is the natural, second is the spiritual, and as we read in the book of Chronicles, not Chronicles, Corinthians, First Corinthians chapter 15, verse 46, that Adam was the natural seed, and we can see this is the time in which he was created, and the Father blew his life-giving spirit into him so that he became a living being. So we could say that the Father's spirit was dwelling in Adam, right? Does it not say that he blew into his nostrils the breath of life? A man became a living being, right? Let's continue. We're now going to go to the book of Exodus, or Shamawath. Oh yes, chapter 25, right? First is the natural, second is the spiritual. Shamawath, Exodus. All right, I'm going to read in verse 1. Okay, it says, the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, tell the Israelite people to bring me gifts. You shall accept gifts from me, from every person whose heart so moves him. And these are the gifts that you shall accept from them, gold, silver, copper, blue, purple, and crimson yarns, fine linen, goat's hair, tanned ram skins, dolphin skins, and acacia wood, oil for lighting, spices for the anointing oil, and for the aromatic incense, lapis and lazuli, and other stones for setting, for the ephod and for the breastpiece, and let them make my sanctuary, that I may dwell among them, exactly as I shown you. The pattern of the tabernacle and the pattern of all its furnishings, so shall you make it. Let's stop there. So this was the instruction that was given to Moshe, right, about how to construct what we class as the tabernacle. And the important part here is that he says that so that he may dwell among them, right? The Father's Spirit, right? Because this is what this is all about. This is about the tabernacle and the Father dwelling within the tabernacle. Quite similar to the Spirit dwelling, being breathed into Adam's vessel so that he becomes a living being, right? This is the natural seed first, Adam. This is the natural tabernacle, earthly tabernacle, right? Bear this in mind, okay? We are now, all right, we're going to get second witness about this tabernacle. We're going to go to the book of Yasha, okay? The book of Yasha, chapter, let's get it, chapter 82, okay? If you read in the book of Samuel, the book of Yasha is a quoted extra biblical text that one can use to provide more clarity into what the Bible is trying to portray. Okay, so we're in chapter 82 and we're in verse 33. Okay, the book of Yasha. And it reads on this wise. It says, "And all the children of Israel brought each man of all that was found in his possession for the work of the sanctuary of the Lord, gold, silver, and brass, and everything that was serviceable for the sanctuary." Sounds familiar, as we just read in the book of Exodus, right? Shemawat. "And all the wise men who were practiced in work came and made the sanctuary of the Lord, according to that according to all that the Lord had commanded. Every man in the work in which he had practiced, and all the wise men in heart made the sanctuary and its furniture and all the vessels for the holy service, as the Lord had commanded Moshe or Moses. And the work of the sanctuary of the tabernacle, right, was completed at the end of 5 months, and the children of Israel did all that the Lord had commanded Moses, right? Let's stop there. So we can see now that this sanctuary, the children of Israel gave their earthly goods to be used to build the tabernacle where the Father can dwell, right? Adam, earthly tabernacle made from the dust of the earth, place that the Father can dwell, right? His spirit. That's what makes him alive, right? First is the natural, second is the spiritual. Can we see now these are the natural tabernacle? It'd be interesting to find out when the spiritual tabernacle takes place, right? Oh, we are still actually using an extra biblical text. We're going to go into the book of Jubilees, right? Uh, oh, I'm going to open already. So we're going, oh, where's it gone? The book of Jubilees. And we're in book of Jubilees, chapter 12. We're going to read from verse 1. It's quite meaty, but it's going to give us some things to talk about, right? Through the Spirit. It says, verse 1, chapter 12 of the book of Jubilees. It says, "And it came to pass in the first year of the exodus of the children of Israel out of Egypt, in the third month, on the 16th day of the month, that God spake to Moses, saying, Come up to me on the mount, and I will give thee 2 tablets of stone of the law and of the commandment, which I have written, that thou mayest teach them. And Moses went up into the mount of God, and the glory of the Lord abode on Mount Sinai, and a cloud overshadowed it 6 days. And he called to Moses on the seventh day out of the midst of the cloud. And the appearance of the glory of the Lord was like a flaming fire on top of the mount. And Moses was on the mount for 40 days and 40 nights. And God taught him the earlier and the latter history, okay, of the divisions of all the days of the law and of the testimony. And he said, Incline thy heart to every word which I speak to thee on the mount, and write them in a book, in order that their generation may see how I have forsaken them for all the evil which they wrought in transgressing the covenant which I've established between me and thee for their generations this day on Mount Sinai." So you can see that Mashah, this is why we have the Torah. The Father's already telling him that we are going to disobey. We're going to go off. You see what I'm saying? But Mashah had to record this stuff, right? Let's continue. It says, and this is verse 6. It says, "And thus it will come to pass when all these things come upon them, that they will recognize that I am more righteous than they in all their judgments and in all their actions. And they will recognize that I have been truly with them. And do thou write for thyself all these words which I declare unto thee this day, for I know their rebellion and their stiff neck." You see this? This sounds like the children of Israel, right? "Before I bring them into the land which I swear to their fathers, to Abraham and to Isaac and Jacob, saying, Unto you a seed will I give, a land flowing with milk and honey, and they will eat and be satisfied, and they will turn to strange gods. Sounds familiar, right? All these churches that we, all these high places that we have in these different lands of captivity, right? Uh, which cannot deliver them from aught of their tribulation, right? And this witness shall be heard for a witness against them, for they will forget all my commandments, even all that I've commanded them, and they will walk after the Gentiles, right? And after their uncleanliness, and after their shame, and will serve their gods, and they shall prove unto them an offense and a tribulation and an affliction and a snare. And many will perish, for they will be taken captive, and will fall into the hands of the enemy, because they have forsaken my ordinances, my commandments, and the festivals of my covenant, my Sabbaths, and my holy place, right? Which I have hallowed for myself in their midst, and my tabernacle and my sanctuary, which I have hallowed for myself in the midst of the land, that I should set my name upon it, and that it should dwell, and that it should dwell there. I'm gonna stop there. So this is pointing to the fact that the children of Israel were destined to go off. Right? This was a prophecy, and Mashiach had to record this. Right? The interesting part is the fact that we forgot the Shabbats, the covenant, all these different things that he required us to follow, is specifically, as well as the tabernacle, which we're talking about today. This tabernacle is where he dwelt, which is an important thing. We want the Father to dwell amongst us, right? But where sin is, the Father cannot dwell. You see what I'm saying? That's why there was an issue in the beginning with Adam, because the Father gave him a life-giving spirit. This spirit belongs to him. All spirits belong to the Father, right? He's the Lord of spirits. If you read in the book of, um, oh, battery's a bit low. 1 second. Cool, we're back. So there are some things that we read that definitely are relatable to the children of Israel's state or condition as we speak. But we are only homing in on the tabernacle, right? The fact is that the tabernacle, the natural tabernacle, is where the Father had dwelt, right? First is the natural, second is the spiritual. So we're first dealing with the natural tabernacle and the Father dwelling within this tabernacle, right? So we've seen Adam is that first natural seed where the Father dwelt within. We are creating a tabernacle where the Father is supposed to dwell in, but there was a prophecy that we were going to forget this tabernacle, right? So some other precautions was going to need to be made. I guess it must be the spiritual, right? Let's go into the book of Maccabees. We're going to get some more witnesses just to solidify what we're dealing with here, right? Right. Second Maccabees chapter 2 verses 4. And it reads, it says, it was also contained in the same writing that the prophet, being warned of God, commanded, right, the tabernacle and the ark to go with him as he went forth in the mountain where Moses climbed and saw the heritage of God. So we have now seen even the book of Maccabees is also giving us a third witness, not even a second witness, actually even a fourth witness, because the book of Yasha, the book of Jubilees, the book of Exodus, and now we're looking in the book of Maccabees, and they're all talking about the same time. And it talks about in the scripture where there are two or more witnesses, all matters may be confirmed. So we can be reassured that this event took place. A tabernacle, a physical, natural tabernacle was built so that the Father may dwell amongst us. Right? Let's continue. We're just getting into the meat of it, and then it will start to open up. Okay, so now we understand that there's a natural tabernacle. Adam is this natural tabernacle. So we also have made this natural tabernacle that the Father could dwell in, but they're both synonymous with each other, right? There's the human, and then there's the actual building, right? This is dealing with the natural. We were talking about first as the natural, second as the spiritual, right? We want to get an actual location here, just so that we can understand the latter, how it all ties in together. So we're going to go into the book of Joshua, right? Book of Joshua, chapter 18. Okay, because where was this tabernacle supposed to be? It's an important thing to know for the children of Israel. We need to understand that there is a place that we're supposed to go and flock to, right? And the book of Joshua is going to help us understand that, right? We're going to go into the book of Joshua, chapter 18. Chapter 18. Oh, it's 18, chapter 2. Sorry. Right. We're going to read from verse 21, right? We're trying to understand the location of where the tabernacle is supposed to be dwelling, right? Because at the time it was just near Mount Sinai. This is where we had just fled. But the idea is that the idea is that we're supposed to go into land, and this tabernacle is supposed to come with us. We're supposed to build it there, right? Anyway, verse 21, it says, "And the towns of the tribe of the Benjamites by its clans were Jericho, Beth Hogla, Emek Keziz, Beth Araba, Zemaram, Bethel, Avivim, uh, Hara, Ufra, Chefaramona, Ophini, Geba towns with their villages. Also Gibeon, Ramah. So these are the towns that belong to Benjamin, right? Also Gibeon, Ramah, Beroth, Mizpah, Chephurah, Moza, and Rechem, and Irpeel, Tarala, Zela, Eleph, and Jebus. Right, that's what we need to be, which is, it says here, that is Jerusalem. Okay, just hold that in thought. So that's what we're looking at. Jebus, which is which was called Jerusalem. Gibeath, Kiriath, towns with their villages. That was the portion of the Benjamites by their clans. So there was a town, the Jebus or Jebusites, which was also, their region was called Jerusalem. This was in the tribe of Benjamin's portion. As we went into the land, we were given different portions of the land. But just understand that the Jebusites, they dwelt in the land of Benjamin. And that place where they dwelt was called Jerusalem. Sounds familiar, does it not? Let's continue. We're now going to go to uh, we're going to go to Second Samuel, okay? Because we understand the natural. Now we just need to understand where that natural was supposed to be, so we can understand the spiritual, right? Because the spiritual is just a replacement of the natural, right? It says first is the natural, second is the spiritual. So we're going to go to Second Samuel, Second Samuel chapter 5. Second Samuel chapter 5. We're going to read from verse. We're going to read from verse 4. It says, David was 30 years old when he became king, and he reigned 40 years. In Hebron, he reigned over Judah 7 years and 6 months. And in Jerusalem, remember this, he reigned over all Israel and Judah 33 years. Okay? The king and his men set out for Jerusalem against the Jebusites, you see, who inhabited the region. Remember, we just read that the Jebusites was dwelling in Benjamin. That place was called Jerusalem. So this is that place that David is looking to take, right? As we read, it says, This is the king, this king, verse 6, this king and his men set out for Jerusalem against the Jebusites who inhabited the region. David was told, You will never get in there. Even the blind and the lame will turn you back. But David captured the stronghold of Zion. It is now the city of David. Okay? I can skip down. Verse 9, it says, David occupied the stronghold and renamed it the city of David. David also fortified the surrounding area from the Milo inwards. Right? David kept growing stronger, for the Lord, the God of hosts, was with him. Let's stop there. So, what we can see here is that we looked at some towns and we see Jebusites. They were dwelling in the land of Benjamin. What these people in the land right now, they claim as the land of Jerusalem, is not the Jerusalem that David conquered. Why? Because if you go and look at any maps, or even just looking at the proportion of the map, that Jerusalem that they're at is almost halfway in the middle of Israel. And knowing the portions that were handed out, that would mean that Judah and Benjamin almost have got half of the land, because Judah was south and then Benjamin was just above, or even or next. They bordered each other. That means that the rest of the 12 tribes would have squeezed, obviously Reuben and Manasseh, I believe they had some over the side of the Jordan, but that would mean that they would have had to have squeezed in the rest of the half, which is not true. The Jerusalem that they are dealing with is the Amorite Jerusalem, right? Where Melchizedek was reigning, the king of the Amorites. But the actual city of David, the tabernacle of David, where Hamashiach is supposed to reign, was in the land of Benjamin. We just read that. He called it the city of David. This is where the Mashiach is supposed to reign. You see? So where they are at with that railing wall, that is not Jerusalem that the Mashiach is going to be reigning at. You understand? And that's important to understand the spiritual, because that's not where the spiritual tabernacle is going to be. Remember, we're looking at first is the natural, then second is the spiritual. We looked at the spiritual seed, which is Adam, right? And we see this natural tabernacle, which they built and which was actually dwelling on the city of David. After he'd conquered this place, that's where the tabernacle was, right? Let's go on to the next portion, right? We should start to see how this all starts to parallel. That the first natural was very important to understand the spiritual. So we understand where the city of David is. It's in the land of Benjamin, right? To be specific, anyone go and search the Telerad. That is where the tabernacle of David, that's what we class as the city of David. That's where the Jerusalem, the Jebusite Jerusalem is. The walls, you can go and see the walls have been destroyed. That was what he's talking about in the Basura, about them encompassing around Jerusalem, flee to the mountains. That's what they destroyed. Those are the walls that were destroyed. Do you understand? But anyway, we're going to go into the book of Tobit. We're using many witnesses today just to ensure that people don't feel that we're just taking one place and running with it. Tobit. We're reading out of the book of Tobit, chapter 13, verses 10. It says, Give praise to the Lord, Yahuwah, for he is good, and praise the everlasting King, that his tabernacle may be builded in thee again with joy, and let him make joyful, and let him make joyful there in thee those that are captives, and love in thee for those that are miserable. Okay, so this tabernacle situation is an important thing, right? We see the physical tabernacle that was made, right? We're going to start slowly getting into the spiritual, but these are prophetic, right? That there is going to be a time where that his tabernacle is going to be rebuilt again or built again, right? Let's go to the book of Judith. Okay, these are apocryphal scriptures. If you get the King James Version 1611, you'll find that these are in there. Okay, so we're now going to read from the book of Judith, chapter 9, verses 8, and it reads on this wise. It says, I'm going to read from verse 7. It says, for behold, the Assyrians multiplied in their power. They are exalted with horsemen, horse and man. They glory in the strength of their footmen. They trust in shield and spear and bow and sling, and know not that thou art Lord, that breakest the battles. The Lord is thy name. Throw down their strength and power, and bring down their force in thy wrath. For they have purpose to defile thy sanctuary, and to pollute the tabernacle where the glorious name resteth, and to cast down with sword the horn of the altar. So, the important part of this is that that's where the Father's name dwells. His presence, that's where he is. Anyone goes onto my Facebook, you'll find that my background picture is a pillar of cloud that's actually traveling and descends into that same Zion, Mount Zion, right? The city of David, what's left of it. You can see a pillar of cloud is traveling and then dips right down, descends right down into it. That was a supernatural event that, the elder and some of the brothers that were in the land actually witnessed, right? And some say that when people were recording it, the people that were there were actually glowing. But that just gives us more evidence to understand that the place that is called the City of David in Tel Arad, Mount Zion, is an important location for the children of Israel, because that's where the Father's name dwells. Nowhere else. It doesn't you don't in none of these churches you go to on these streets, the Father's not there. You understand? It says obviously where there are two or more gathered in his name, he will be in the midst of thee. I understand that. That's true. But the actual buildings themselves, with all the, sometimes they have idols, Mary and things like that. The Father is not in those buildings. If there's going to be a location in which one should gravitate towards, that should be this city of David, where the spiritual tabernacle is going to be, because the natural tabernacle was there, right? First is the natural, second is the spiritual. Let's continue. So we're now going to go into the book of the Wisdom of Solomon. We're in chapter 9, verse 8, right? And it reads on this wise. It says, thou hast commanded me to build a temple on thy holy mount. Sounds familiar, right? Mount Zion. This is all going to connect as we get later into the spiritual, right? Thou hast commanded me to build a temple onto thy holy mount, an altar in the city, right? Is it maybe the city's Jerusalem? Wherein thou dwellest, a resemblance of the holy tabernacle. Oh, is this not the spiritual that we're going to see soon? Which thou have prepared from the beginning. So, a lot's going on with the Father. He's knowing things way ahead of time. He's prepared the spiritual tabernacle way before we've even understood these things. Right? Let's continue. We want to add a second witness into the understanding of um, the location, right? We're going into an extra biblical text called the Lost Book of Eden, which has some information about the tabernacle, right? and we're in chapter 4, and we're going to read from verse 29. This is talking about what the Father blessed the different 12 tribes of Israel, right? This will be quite useful for those that are not aware of this. It says, and the Lord blessed Levi and the angel of presence, or the angel of presence. And the Lord blessed Levi, and the angel of presence, me. Okay, so these are the blessings. The Lord, Yahweh, blessed Levi. The angel of presence blessed, this is Jude, I believe this is Judah speaking. Yeah, this is Judah, right? The angel of presence blessed Judah. The powers of glory, Simeon. The heavens, Reuben. The earth, Issachar. The sea, Zebulun. The mountains, Joseph. The tabernacle, Benjamin, right? The luminaries, Dan. Eden, Naphtali. The sun, Gad. The moon, Asher. There is a lot here for me to talk about through the Spirit. I may even just touch upon this, but we can see that the tabernacle was blessed to Benjamin. So we know that the tabernacle of David was in the land of Benjamin. We already read that in the book of Samuel, right? That the Jebusites dwelt in the land of Benjamin. That was called Jerusalem. That's the same place that David conquered. This is now a second witness to prove that the tabernacle was blessed to Benjamin. Another thing just to add is that it says Eden to Naphtali. If you understand it, Naphtali was up on the north of Israel, which also proves that the Garden of Eden was, very, very much close to the what? The Fertile Crescent, that area there, right? If anyone understood what the land would have looked like in the beginning, you would understand that somewhere around there, that would have been the Garden of Eden, which, the Father placed Adam east of Eden, which was Eden was Africa at that time. So east, if you go to the east of it, you're going to come somewhere near where the Middle East is, what we cast today, right? But that's for another day. So the idea is that we got the second witness, right? Is that Benjamin was promised the tabernacle. So we know that the tabernacle of David is in the land of Benjamin, and that's the place that Hamashiach is going to reign. First is the natural, which was Adam, and the physical tabernacle that they made that was on the Mount Zion, right? We're going to start going into the spiritual now. Okay, we're going to go into the book of Yeshaya or Isaiah. Yeshaya chapter 11, right? Let's get it. Let's get it. Let's get it. Yeshaya chapter 11. Excuse me. And it reads on this wise. Verse 1. It says, but a shoot shall go out of the stump of Jesse. I hope you know what Jesse is or who Jesse is. A twig shall sprout from his stalk. The Spirit of the Lord shall alight upon him. Spirit of wisdom and insight. Spirit of counsel and valor. The spirit of devotion and reverence for the Lord. Okay? We're going to stop there. We can count. It says, the Spirit of the Lord shall alight upon him. The Spirit of wisdom, the Spirit of insight, the Spirit of counsel, the Spirit of valor, the Spirit of devotion, and the Spirit and Spirit of reverence of the Lord. That's seven spirits. Okay? Just bear that in mind. These seven spirits are going to rest upon this person that comes out of the shoot of Jesse. Jesse was an individual. If you trace the lineage down Jesse, you can read it in the book of what? Book of Luke, chapter 3, I believe. Shows you the genealogy of the individual that they're talking about here. Then we can come to the conclusion about who are the seven spirits resting upon, right? Now let's go into the book of Matthew, chapter 3. right? The seven spirits, right? First is the natural. We've established the natural. Now we're trying to establish the spiritual. Okay. Chapter 3, and we're going to read from verse 13. Okay, and it says, context here is the baptism of the Hamashiach. It says, at that time, Yahshua came from Galilee to the Jordan to John in order to be baptized by him. But John tried to refuse him, saying, I need to be baptized by you, and you have come to me. Yahshua answered him, allow it now, for so it is proper for us to fulfill all righteousness. Then John allowed him. When Yeshua was baptized, immediately he came up from the water, and heaven opened to him. He saw the Spirit of God descending like a dove, and it came upon him. And behold, a voice from heaven said, this is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. So, we just read in the book of Yeshua that there was an individual that was coming out of the stem of or root of Jesse, that the Spirit of the Lord was going to alight upon him. These seven spirits, right? Does it not seem that this is talking about that same person, as the Spirit of the Lord is descending upon him like a dove? Is this not the beginning of the spiritual that was supposed to come after the natural, right? Because we read in the book of Corinthians that the first man was from the earth, a man of dust, but the second man was from heaven, right? Because first is it's not the spiritual that is first, but the natural, and then the spiritual. Let's continue. Let's go add more icing on the cake to why we know that this is the spiritual, right? We're going to go into the book of Revelations, chapter 5, right? We're dealing with the tabernacle, right? Which is your body, as well as the physical building. That's what a tabernacle is. And the idea is that the Father dwells within the tabernacle, your physical body, as well as the building, right? There was the natural, and now we're starting to see the spiritual. Let's go into the spiritual, right? Let's see what Yochanan had to say in the book of Revelation, chapter 5, right? Because he's going to help us understand who is the spiritual, right? And it reads, verse 1, it says, then I saw in the right hand of him who was sitting upon the throne a scroll inscribed within and without, and sealed with 7 seals. And I saw another strong angel who was heralding with a loud voice, who is worthy to open the scroll and to break its seals? And there was no one able in heaven, nor on earth, nor under the earth, to open the scroll and to break its seals, and to look therein. So I was crying much, because there was no one found who was worthy to open the scroll and to break its seals. Then one of the elders said to me, stop crying. Lo, the Lion from the tribe of Judah, the root of David, right? Oh, doesn't that sound, you know, it's coming. Then David is the what? Is he not the son of Jesse, right? The root of David has prevailed. He will open the scroll and its seals. Then I saw in the midst of the throne of the 4 creatures of the elders a lamb standing as slaughtered, and it had 7 horns, 7 eyes, which are the 7 spirits of God sent into all the earth. So it looks like Yeshua was on point, wasn't it? He's pretty on point, that the spirit that was out of the root of Jesse, which is David was the son of Jesse, right? So out of the root of Jesse, there was going to be an individual that the Spirit of the Lord, the 7 spirits, were going to rest upon him. Seems like Yochanan is talking about the same individual here. And we looked in the book of Mattai, where he's actually recorded the actual event in which that occurred through the baptism. That's why baptism is important, my friends. We're now going to finish it up. We're closing out. So we've now looked at the natural. We've now started to see the evidence of the spiritual, right? We're seeing the spiritual seed. We saw the natural seed. We saw the natural building, right? Everything must be fulfilled, right? So we're now going to go into the book of Hebrews, because we understand that that the actual natural had a physical location, right? I'm talking about the natural tabernacle here. So we're going to go into the book of Hebrews, chapter 12. Okay? Book of Hebrews, chapter 12. All right, we're going to read from verse 18. And the context is warning against being short of God's grace. And it reads, it says, "You see, the fire that you are approaching is not one that is burning and can be felt, nor are you approaching the darkness, the fog, the storm, the noise of the trumpet, and words from that voice. That voice. Those who heard it begged not to have to listen to it anymore, because they could not bear what they were being told. That even if the animal comes close to the mountain, it must be stoned. The sight was so awe-inspiring that Mashah said, 'I am shaking with fear.' What you are approaching, however, is Mount Zion, the city of the living God, the heavenly Jerusalem, the gathering of millions of angels, the church of the firstborn, those who are enrolled in heaven, to God, the judge of all things, and to the spirits of those just people who have been perfected. And you are approaching Yahshua, the mediator of the new covenant, and the sprinkling of his blood, which bears a better message than Abel's did." Let's just stop there. So there's a lot here that has now just g- grabbed this whole topic and made it plain, right? Mount Zion, we see that in the book of Samuel, that is the place, that city of David he conquered. It's now connecting the natural to the spiritual, because it says this is the heavenly Jerusalem, the gathering of millions of angels, the church of the firstborn, those who are enrolled in heaven, to God, the judge of all things, and the spirits of those just people who have been perfected. This place is important, my friends. The natural, first is the natural, but the spiritual is going to come. It's going to replace the natural. Same as like our natural bodies are going to be replaced with spiritual bodies, right? Corruptible with incorruptible, right? A couple more scriptures, a few more scriptures, sorry. We're going to go to Second Peter. No, actually, First Peter, right? First Peter, chapter 2, verses 6. And it reads on this wise. It says, the context is become a spiritual temple and holy priests, right? It says, "For it said in the scripture, behold, I place in Zion a cornerstone, select and precious, and whoever believes in him will not be ashamed." Okay? I wonder who that cornerstone is, that chief cornerstone. Let's go to the book of Revelations to see who that chief cornerstone will be. Revelation chapter 14, right? And verse 1. The context is the song of the 144,000. It says, "Then I saw, and behold, the Lamb." Right? Does it not sound like the Lamb that is spoken about in the book, in the chapter 5 that you're walking on is talking about, with the seven spirits? This Lamb, the Spirit of the Lord is dwelling upon. It says, "Then I saw, behold, the Lamb was standing on Mount Zion, and with him 144,000 who had his name upon them, and the name of his Father written upon their foreheads," or in their foreheads, right? Their minds. Okay? So we're now seeing the spiritual is now being linked to actual location. Mount Zion, city of David, the place that David conquered, right? Which is in the land of Benjamin, right? Jerusalem, where the natural begins and the spiritual finishes it, right? Because we see that Hamashiach is now there. He is the spiritual. Adam was the natural. He's now the spiritual. All we're waiting for is the spiritual building, because the natural building, you know, was already built and it was destroyed, right? It was, Solomon's temple kind of replaced that for a period of time. But now we're waiting for the spiritual. And where is the spiritual taking place, right? It's taking place in chapter 21 of the book of Revelations, right? I'm going to read in verse 1. The context is the new heavens and the new earth. And it says, Then I saw a new heavens and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth departed, and the sea was no more. And I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, descending from heaven, from with God, prepared like an adorned bride for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from heaven which said, Behold, the dwelling of God is with man. Remember, he dwells within the tabernacle, and he will dwell with them, and they shall be his people, and God is with them, and he shall be to them God, and he shall wipe away all the tears from their eyes, and death shall be no more, nor mourning, nor clamor, nor pain shall be on on her face. And I departed, and the one sitting on the throne said to me, Behold, I am making all new. Moreover, he said to me, Write these words, they are faithful and true. He said to me, they have come about. I am the Aleph and the Tar, the beginning and the end. The one that is thirsty, I will give from the spring of living waters freely. And he that has overcome shall inherit these, and I will be to him God, and he will be my son. But as to the fearful and the unbelieving and the unjust and the defilers and the murderers and the sorcerers and the fornicators and the idolaters and all liars, their portion is in the burning lake of fire and sulfur, which is the second death. So we were dealing with the Feast of Tabernacles, and the natural versus the natural, second is the spiritual. That the tabernacle is dealing not only just the physical building and the spiritual building, but also dealing with the physical body and the spiritual body. You know, that one is going to be raised, is going to be die corruptible and raised incorruptible. The tabernacle where the Father dwells. Right? So I only hope the reader and listen to this word will be blessed by this, and may Yahweh bless you, may Yahweh keep you, may Yahweh cause his face to shine upon you, may Yahweh be gracious to you. May Yahweh lift up his countenance upon you, and may Yahweh grant you everlasting peace in Yahshua HaMashiach's name I pray. Selah.